All right, for the recording, welcome back. We are ACI Course 6 Classics. It is September 22nd, 2024. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom, and see them here with you. They're gazing at you with their unconditional love for you. Smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiating from them. That beautiful golden light encompassing you within it. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. We are learning that this is possible. And so I invite you to grow this wish into a longing. And turn this longing into an intention. And then turn this mind of intention onto that precious holy guide. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratnamanda Kamriyatayam. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. To the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. To the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. To the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. So I do want to do the review because it leads us into the class nicely. Your quiz asked for the 6 perfections in order, and we've learned them. The perfection of giving, the perfection of moral discipline, the perfection of patience, meaning not getting angry when we're in a situation where we would. The perfection of having a good time, doing your other perfections. The perfection of meditative concentration, and the perfection of wisdom. And we didn't really talk about why that is the order. We'll talk about that in future classes. It comes in Master Shantideva, I think. Your second quiz question asks to name the 3 elements of the act of giving and what it means to not see them. And the answer key, if you noticed, is a little bit different than what I said in class. Because I said in class that the giver is like the 4th factor, not one of the 3, but then in this question, the answer key says the emptiness of the giver, the emptiness of the receiver, and the emptiness of the giving, and really doesn't talk about the emptiness of the object given, but it would apply in the same way. So what does it mean to understand the emptiness of the giver and what it means to not see them? So in these situations, we're talking about oneself as the giver, right? It applies if you see someone else giving something to somebody else, but it's not quite the same process, but then not the seeds we're working on. We want to understand the emptiness of oneself, the giver. So we would think, I myself am empty of self-existence. I exist as these perceptions forced by my karmic seeds ripening right now. And so I can use this situation to plant new seeds for a me in a situation as a fully enlightened being. And understanding this, I don't see this element, me, as having any self-existence, having any true nature. By imposing our understanding, my me giving is seeds ripening. I cannot see the me in me that I used to see before. You don't disappear. You don't stop giving. It's all in mental words at first. And who's aware of you doing that? You are. And so you're planting seeds in a different way than when we just ordinary me giving bread to the ordinary bird. The second element, the emptiness of the recipient. They too are empty of self-nature. They exist as this perception forced on me by the ripening of my past action. So I can use this opportunity to plant seeds to see them as a fully enlightened being in my paradise someday. Understanding this, I don't see them as self-existent anymore. Like in the period of time that we were describing that to ourselves, we weren't seeing them in the same old usual way. Just thinking it once doesn't stop our seeing them in the ordinary way forever. But if we can plant, a series of 65 seeds for 2 seconds, that's more than we did before. So rejoiceable. The third element, the element of giving, the emptiness of the giving. Here's the situation, me giving something to someone. This whole experience is empty of self-existence, meaning it is a situation and experience I am having by way of my perceiving things this way, ripening on me results of past deeds. And so the opportunity to plant seeds to experience the activity of enlightened being in the future. And understanding this, I'm not seeing this third element the giving as self-existent. All in words. And the extent to which we can impose those words while we're giving a piece of bread to the bird, those seeds get implanted. It gets easier next time around. And next time around, and next time around. And that effort to see things ordinarily and refuse to agree with it is such a goodness that those seeds that we plant while imposing this mental gymnastic are a great goodness that contributes to other goodness that we've done, that moves us along in our intellectual understanding of what those words are actually describing, so that we get closer and closer to reaching the place where we can experience directly what we mean by those words. Seeds ripening, and so opportunity to plant, and so not seeing things as self-existent in that period of time. Am I literally seeing things as self-existent still? Yeah. But refusing to believe it, simply intellectually, gets us started. What this means is, like, every moment of every experience is ripening of this mind's past perceptions of me doing, saying, thinking something towards an other. No self-existence in any part of it, which is how and why I can experience what I do, and how and why everything I do experience is unique to me. Everything you experience is unique to you. And so every experience is an opportunity to plant seeds for new experience, not an opportunity. We are planting seeds for new experience with every interaction. It's the opportunity to plant seeds more consciously, more intentionally, driven by our growing wisdom, our growing understanding, so that we can reach the point where we are, in fact, planting seeds that will be the cause of our future Buddhahood, instead of cause of a nicer samsara. We plant our seeds with this understanding of the emptiness of the three spheres, that sequence we just went through. That's how we plant our seeds in a different way as we are doing our usual interactions with other beings. So, in the sutra, Lord Buddha now asks Venerable Subhuti, what do you think, Subhuti? When a stream enterer enters the stream, does she think to herself, oh, I've entered the stream? And Subhuti says, no, she doesn't think that. So he goes on to say, does a once returner think to themselves, oh, now I'm a once returner. And Subhuti says, no. And then does a non-returner think to themselves, oh, I'm now a non-returner? Subhuti says, no. And what about Arhat? Once you're Arhat, do you really not say, now I'm Arhat? And Subhuti says, no, they're not going to say that. But then he's going to go on to say something surprising later in the sutra that seems to contradict this whole conversation. But so let's go back to the stream enterer. What does it mean to be a stream enterer? And why is it significant that a brand new stream enterer does not say, now I'm a stream enterer? Like, do they not know it? Do they just being really humble so they don't admit it? Like, what's the point here? So stream enterer, becoming stream enterer, happens with our first direct perception of emptiness. In those moments, we become Arya. We had that. No, we didn't. Maybe we didn't have it. Let's go to vocabulary. So Arya is the Sanskrit word. Bhakpa is Tibetan. Arya means superior. It does mean superior, superior being, but it's meant to convey that the Arya, the new Arya, is superior to how they themselves have ever been before. It's not at all about comparing oneself to others. So the way in which that word has been used historically has been wickedly misused. And so it's got a negative connotation in some circles, and I beg you to override that with truth. It means it is the word that we use for someone who had seen emptiness directly. So we get it in the literature. We say Arya Nagarjuna. We say Arya Asanga after he's been to Maitreya's heaven and comes back. Pakpa in Tibetan. So there are two divisions of existing beings in all of the universe. In that, what's the word? Tom Chempo, the billion of a billion of a billion inhabited planets. All those beings, however many there are, fall into one of two categories. One is they're either Arya or they are so kewo. The so apparently has a R in there somewhere, but you barely hear it when Geshe-la says it, but it didn't seem fair to leave it out because it isn't exactly so kewo, like so or kewo, very, very light hint of R. What it means is ordinary person. We are ordinary person until we've had our first direct perception of emptiness. And then we are Bhakpa. Forever. Not just that lifetime, but forever. Forever changed. Geshe-la says it's a huge differentiation between beings because of this significant change that happens to us by way of this experience of the direct experience of ultimate reality for the first time. It makes us a totally, totally different being. Up until that moment, our career in samsara is unlimited. And we've heard that not even an omniscient Buddha can know when we will reach our Buddhahood. They know we will, but exactly when depends on our own karmic management. Until we've seen emptiness directly, our suffering is still limitless, they say. The Pakpa, coming out of that experience, is now on her way out of samsara. Technically, on her way to stopping perpetuating samsara. They call it getting out. Typically, it will take 7 more lifetimes to achieve it. But in those 7 lifetimes, she remains on this conveyor belt to Buddhahood, to nirvana, if that was the goal. We're in a perfection of wisdom teaching that assumes that we're Mahayana, which assumes that our goal is total Buddhahood. The process is the same. The result of our experience, the direct perception of emptiness, has a different impact on our mind, depending on our training going into it. So once direct perception of emptiness has happened, we're moving inexorably towards our goal. It will be a certain amount of time before that transformation happens. And that makes this big difference between a being who is not stream enterer and a being who is stream enterer. And that's where the term stream enterer came from. We know that all streams flow inexorably to the ocean. If there had been conveyor belts to Buddhahood in Lord Buddha's time, we would be called like conveyor belt riders. But there were only rivers. So the term is stream enterer. Once you've entered this stream, there's no getting out of it. Like even if you wanted to, you couldn't, but there's no reason you would want to, because of what it means to be Arya, what you know directly to be true. So another thing happened at the direct perception of emptiness. At that moment, one becomes 2 of the 3 jewels. So the 3 jewels is what every Buddhist prays to. The 3 jewels is what every Buddhist goes to for protection. Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, Sangha jewel. We understand that the Buddha jewel, the Buddha, the refuge in the Buddha can be nominal refuge and ultimate refuge. The Dharma jewel, there's a nominal Dharma jewel and an ultimate Dharma jewel. And same for Sangha jewel. So you as new Arya become Dharma jewel and Sangha jewel the moment you have your direct perception of emptiness. Your Buddha jewel hood is still a long way away, probably 7 lifetimes or faster. But you are already Dharma jewel, Sangha jewel. The Sangha jewel conventionally are the ordained people. But the Sangha jewel ultimately is anyone ordained or not who's had the direct perception of emptiness because they have had a certain experience and what they had to do to lead up to that experience, through which they now know how to teach others to do it as well. So they become this authority in seeing emptiness directly and its meaning, its significance. So they become someone we can rely upon, someone we can go to for protection, but not protection like save me from a speeding bullet, but rather save me from my own ignorant understanding of where things come from, save me from my habit of blaming others and reacting badly. And they teach us. The Dharma jewel, right? The Dharma has all those different meanings. One of them is the teachings of the Buddha, the teachings of the commentaries. But the Dharma jewel is the realizations and sensations in the mind of a being who's had the direct perception of emptiness. So what does it take to reach this experience? Our tradition is really nicely laid out, and it's tried and true. People have used it, they've learned it, they've applied it, and they gained their sequence of realizations until they reach their goal. If we follow that guidance, we'll get those results. Now, following that guidance is easier said than done a lot of times, but it's not the fault of the teachings. It's not the fault of the Lamrim. It's one's own, mental afflictions getting in the way. But even that, we learn how to work with them. So there isn't anything that can happen in life that can't be used as part of the practice. So there are prerequisites to reaching the direct perception of emptiness. The first is getting onto our first path, Sokalam, the path of accumulation, accumulating enough disgust, disappointment, unhappiness with our ordinary life that we are compelled to look for an answer. There are two levels of getting onto Soklam and then moving ourselves along it. One's called Nenjung, the other is Rabjung. Nenjung means to definitely come out. It means definitely coming out of samsara. And so it's a term used for actually reaching nirvana or Buddhahood. So it's almost like Ninjung is another word for reaching the result. Our ultimate result of reaching our path of accumulation is to reach our goal. We can't reach the goal if we never step onto the first path, the path of accumulation. Accumulating enough reject of our samsaric habits, right? It isn't really accumulating, it's getting rid of stuff. But we need to have the motivation to want to stop perpetuating a broken cycle. And that takes time, even to get there, to the place where we've reached that place. There's something wrong with this picture. Nothing works right. You know, even the nice stuff ends. Even the nice stuff is disappointing. I'm just sick of being disappointed all the time. Something's got to shift. Surely there's something that can help me. The other factor in our Soklam reaching it and moving along that, within that process of experiences, is Rabjung. Rabjung means to come out of the home life. So it's more specific than Nenjung. Nenjung, to come out of samsara. Rabjung, to come out of the home life. And it means more leave behind the home life. And it sounds like it means, oh, get ordained, move to the monastery. And that is an option for our acting on our growing state of mind of Rabjung, but it's not necessary. So if you recall the three principal paths, they are renunciation, bodhicitta, and correct worldview. So we're talking here about our growing renunciation, our, whatever has happened in life that triggers our state of mind. I'm going to look for something else. That starts us on our path of accumulation. And then probably we searched for a while. That was all happening on path of accumulation. And then, eventually you hit the teachings where somebody teaches the pen thing and seeds open. It's like, oh, wow. Right? And we glom on and we study more and see that maybe this is a path that can really work. And so we're trying it on for size, changing our seed planting even maybe before we really know much about it, because of some connection from past life of having met the teachings that speak to us. Reaching the realization of renunciation, full renunciation, is reaching this state of mind where we are so disgusted with everything in this broken realm that there's just nothing acceptable about it. And it's quite radical. It's hard to get to that place where, like, I'm done with it. Without thinking it means you're going to walk away from your family, your job, your bank account, everything, and go live under a bridge. It does not mean that. Right? This is a mental renunciation that's maybe harder to hold than living under a bridge, but it does not require ditching out of your life, and it should not compel us to give up our obligations and to leave other people stranded, other beings stranded, or to mooch off other people so that we can be a good practitioner. Right? That's misunderstanding this path of renunciation. We can't reach our path of seeing without starting on the path of accumulation, growing this renunciation, this reject of samsara. This nenjung, getting out of samsara. This renunciation is a mental state, an attitude, and an understanding state. We could spend months meditating in a cave, having given everything away. And our mind could be still agitating about, what do they think of me? Who's thinking of me? Do I have enough support? And we would be no different than we were before we ditched everything and went into the cave. Or we can be this layperson, totally concerned with serving others, bringing a little happiness into our world, both with our physical service and with our meditation service, which is interesting because we think, oh, when I go into meditation, that is me time. Right? I'm going deep within myself, and everybody has to agree. This is my personal time. Don't interrupt me no matter what. And it sounds so selfish. It's a misunderstanding of what we are doing and what we are achieving by way of our on the cushion time, leave me alone, right? No interruptions, no matter what, for the next 10 minutes. They don't know what we're doing. But the difference in our own mind as we do our meditation, as it's planting seed, is leave me alone, this is my me time. Adds more selfishness to the pot. Leave me alone, I'm saving the world right now. Changes the power of those seeds. The difficulty is that we so easily can fool ourselves. We hear the teaching, oh, renunciate, give up your world, your give up your home life, and we're ready to do it. And then it's like, wait, maybe that's not the highest way I help my family, to just ditch them. So I can use everything about my life as part of my practice, and then everybody benefits. And that is what we're trying to cultivate. But it's so easy to then fall into the, we need a new refrigerator, right? Maybe we really do. But then we think, okay, let's go to Home Depot, let's find the one on sale. And it's like just sucked into worldly ways. Maybe our wisdom would say, we need a new refrigerator. I wonder who else does. Maybe, like, I can't buy 2 refrigerators, I don't think. But maybe somebody else needs something that I can give them. And do we think, before we go to Home Depot to buy the new refrigerator, we go find somebody who needs something and get it for them? So say we do that on Saturday, and then on Sunday, we go to Home Depot. Did giving the other person the new shoes make the refrigerator on Sunday? No, but it contributed to other seeds of giving somebody something that they needed. So that if we find the refrigerator that we need at Home Depot, that's the one, we can get it. Maybe we get to Home Depot and it's like, none of these will do. And we think, what's the matter with the world? What's the matter with Home Depot? They don't have the refrigerator I want. And we've just made that mistake of blaming them instead of blaming my own seeds. Right? So the renunciation is this state of mind. It does evolve into where our old interests fall away, our old habits, like of what we do for fun, fall away, of even the people that we used to like to hang out with, fall away. And it can happen very sweetly, organically, the way they say. You don't need to reach a place in your spiritual practice where Buddha has said, now it's time to renunciate. And then you have to go to all your people and say, you know what, you're ordinary being, I can't see you anymore because I'm on my spiritual path. Right? Those are not the seeds we want. But what you'll find is, they call you, hey, Sarani, you want to go to, I don't know, go to the bar and hang out. Like I never did that, but that might be what happens. And you go, oh, gee, I know we used to enjoy doing that, but no, I can't go. You don't have to say why. You don't have to make up anything. You just say thanks, but no thanks. They call you again, thanks, but no thanks. How many times do they call before they go, forget it, right? And nobody ever had to say why or sorry, I don't like you anymore. It's not like that. It's interests change. And we've done it, right? We've had friends that we aren't close to anymore because everybody's interests changed. And it's not any kind of fight at all. Same with our growing renunciation. Our priorities change, our interests change, our very vocabulary changes. And maybe there'll be somebody who ends up saying, that Louisa, I can't even talk to her anymore because I can't understand. She's speaking English, but I don't get it. She's talking about seeds and behavior, and I don't know, I don't get it. So you still have a connection with that being. They are still part of the beings that you are going to help someday. So they will be back, not to worry. But also don't go impose that. Allow it to evolve. Ninja. when things come to us, if they're pleasant, enjoy them by sharing them. When things come to us and they're unpleasant, enjoy them by burning them off. That's the joyous effort piece. Burn them off, don't replant. You don't enjoy it, of course, but the idea is the renunciation grows such that this grasping to the things I like and pushing away the things I don't like starts to ease. That impulse gets softer and easier, and we become much more tolerant of others and things and experiences because we understand the process. And when we are at that place of beginning to understand the process better, because our renunciation has gotten stronger and stronger, we make this shift from Soklam to Jorlam. Jorlam is the path of preparation, where we're preparing to have the direct experience of emptiness. We make that preparation by gaining intellectual understanding of what's meant by emptiness and dependent origination. And we gain that intellectual understanding by way of class time, class time, class time. Study, study, study. Contemplate, contemplate, contemplate. Think about it. Try to meditate on it. Specifically, in our path of preparation, we need to become familiar with this difficult concept called Chicherak. Cherak is spelled like this, with an R in it. But if you listen to Geshe-la say it, it's another one of those R's that you can barely hear. Sounds to me like Cherak, but somehow there's a little something in there that makes it the R. Chicherak. So Chicherak is this concept that's necessary for us to grasp, that takes us to the precursor experience of our direct perception of emptiness. The term chi, so this is Tibetan. I don't know the Sanskrit. The term chi means, it's the word for quality. And chedak is characteristic. But what it means is a quality, and the chedak is things characteristic of that quality. So chi is like how we identify something, how we recognize something. That's what's meant by quality. And then the chedak is things that match that quality, things that are characteristic of it. So they say chedak means characteristic, but in English, it would sound like, the quality red, and characteristic would be, red is characteristic of blood. Everybody knows blood's red. But that's not what this meaning is here. It's more like set and subset theory that we learned as little kids, right? So in this topic of Chicherak, There are four kinds of qi, four kinds of quality. Sok qi, rik qi, dun qi, and dra qi. There they are, up at the top. Sok qi. And then each one of these kinds of qi has various chedaks, things that are characteristic of it. So sok qi, sok means a gathering or a collection. So a sok qi, they say, is a collection general. Again, in English, it's awkward. A collection quality. That the reading definition will say a general as far as a collection, meaning a whole thing that's comprised of its parts. Like a mala is the sok qi, comprised of its 108 beads and the guru bead. Like a human body, the sok qi, composed of arms, legs, torso, head. That's not so hard to grasp. Whole things have parts characteristic of it, right? The mala beads are not things characteristic of my body. They are things characteristic of the mala, the sok qi. It's not so helpful to understand sok qi and sok qi jedaks in our effort to see emptiness directly. Second kind of qi is called rik qi. Rik means family or type. So the qi here being the quality or the general as far as type. So Geshe-la's example is consider motor vehicle as the general type that we're talking about. And then Toyota is a chedak of the rik qi motor vehicle. Toyotas are a manifestation of motor vehicle, but not all motor vehicles are Toyota. Another manifestation of motor vehicle are Fords, Audis, right? BMWs, you know the list. No, none of the chedaks encompass the rik qi. The rik qi is bigger than any of the things characteristic of it. You see? When you see a Toyota truck, your mind includes in that truck motor vehicle. Like you can't see a truck and not know motor vehicle, because motor vehicle is the big set within which Toyota truck is one. What makes a rik qi is that there are multiple objects which share that characteristic. The point is that rik qi, and we'll see dun qi and dra qis, is helping us to recognize what makes us identify the things that we do. What makes us identify the things that we do in the way that we do. Why do we see that truck, Toyota truck? Why do we see truck at all? How is that working? Non-Buddhists believe that the identity of the object either radiates out of the object or cloaks it, and we see it according to how the object, right, is. Like the object is sending its identity to the observer. But this cannot be correct and be consistent with experience. If it were true that the object was sending its identity to the experiencer of that object, then every being who perceives that object would have to perceive it according to the objects sending it forth. And even if we say, well, the object sends forth different for me than somebody else, then we would still be saying, well, then the object is depending on me to send to me yellow truck when it sends to them gray truck because they're colorblind, right? It still would have to be somehow dependent on the observer. If any two beings could perceive the same object, looking at the same object and perceive it differently, that cannot be consistent with the object's identity in it. Like it's so simple, we miss it. Does every being see any object in the same way as another being? Geshe-la's example was, everybody knows about Tarzan, right? Who was raised by the apes in Africa, never saw another human, and suddenly they find him and they take him to New York City. Does Tarzan see taxi cabs on the streets of New York City? Like, I understand that at least in Tarzan's time, there was like nothing but taxi cab on the streets of New York City. And everybody knows what a taxi cab looks like. So everybody assumes Tarzan will know what a taxi cab looks like. But would he see taxi cab? If he didn't have any taxi cab seeds in his mind because his mother didn't teach him yellow car, sedan, taxi cab, would he even see car? No. What if he walked out in front of the street of those no taxis, no cars? Could he get run over? Yeah. By what? I don't know. We'd have to ask him. What got you? The weirdest looking rhinoceros I've ever been run over by. Right? Because that's the only framework that being's mind would have. What if we're a being who sees only an ultraviolet? What does our world look like now? Back when Geshe-la was teaching this first, they didn't have the ability to film the ultraviolet world. Now I think they can. And there are documentaries showing us what birds see and what insects see. And it's so different than what we see. And somehow our seeds are such that they can show us that. So can an object identify itself to its observer and be consistent with the fact that two observers experience things differently? Those are contradictory. we might say, okay, but some of the object's identity comes from it, and some comes from the observer. And we'd say, correct, that will be helpful. But ultimately, when you go looking for the part that comes from the object, you will never find it. Not that you won't find something more subtle that appears to be coming from the object. And eventually we go, oh, I get it. It's not one or the other. It's some process happening. So how is it that we recognize things? What is it about a cow that allows you to recognize cow? What is it about human that allows us to recognize human or table or pen? This is one of those Geshe-la said, cook it. And then later on, of course, he gives us the punchline. No, whatever we are recognizing is empty of its own identity from it. My mind seeds ripening makes me identify it. What makes me identify cow, human, table? We're so sure there's something in that influences us. Our path of preparation is about learning intellectually about how it is impossible for the object to convey its own identity to us, how it's impossible for any object to have its own identity. And part of our training is to see how our own mind struggles with that, so that we can work with the logic and the theory behind the struggle in order to come to our own conclusion of how impossible it is for anything to have its identity in it and be what I experience. So Geshe-la says, use this sequence. First, just think car. So actually, let's just do a little experiment, right? Just watch what pops into your mind when I say car. Then quote car, meaning the word car. Then a car, the car, that car, my car, your car, blue car, old car, good car, bad car. Different images. Go back to the first one, car. Just car. Do you have an image? Is it a specific car? How do you know it to be that specific car? You had to know quote car for you to have that specific car pop up in your mind when I said car. Because we really can't have a mental picture of a non-specific car, the idea car. All we can have is some specific memory, specific cartoon drawing, right? Something specific. But how can we have the specific if we don't already have the general in our mind? What if you didn't know the word car? And we did this exercise. Think car, right? If you didn't know car, I don't just mean the word English word car, but the whole idea of car. If you didn't have that in your mind stream, would any of those words, car, a car, the car, my car, that car, would any of them have meant anything? No, we can't have a specific without a general. The general is not specific enough to ever be there. But without it, we never have the specific. And there's something important about that. Necessary marriage between the non-specific identity, the set, the overall, the archetype, or the idealization, and all the different chedaks, things characteristic of it. We can't have a chedak of something we don't have a generalization about. Okay. Rikchi. Dunchi is a more specific kind of rikchi. I just said they were non-specifics, but dunchi means a general, this quality as far as object. General as far as object is the English for the description of what's meant by dunchi. What that's trying to say is that the dunchi is this mental image that we get when we think of something that we have experienced before. So when I said think car, with car being the rikchi, because you've seen cars before, you got a mental image of a car. That was a dunchi of car. Because of some past experience, a mental image can pop up in our mind through which we identify something. And that mental image that comes out from having experienced something before is called the dunchi. Its chedaks are the things that you see. Drachi is a general as far as sound, meaning a mental image that we get when we think or hear of something that we've never experienced before, but we've heard about. So, for instance, I've never been to Niagara Falls, but I've heard about Niagara Falls. I've seen pictures of Niagara Falls. But when somebody says Niagara Falls, the image that pops into my mind, whether it's a picture image or the idea, oh, big horseshoe-shaped waterfall between Canada and United States, is a drachi, mental image of something I've only heard about, because I don't have what I need for it to be a dunchi. If I'd ever been to Niagara Falls, but I'm not there now, and someone says Niagara Falls, my dunchi would ripen. What if I've seen a picture of Niagara Falls and somebody says Niagara Falls? What's popping up there? If what pops up is the memory of the picture, it's a dunchi of the picture, Niagara Falls. If what pops up is some idea of the real Niagara Falls that I've never experienced, it's a drachi. Geshe was emphasizing rikchis and dunchi. Fast forward many years of further study and deeper study, I personally believe that drachis are a really important thing because as we study emptiness and hear about the power of experiencing emptiness directly, but we've never done it before ourselves, we are planting drachis of emptiness and the direct perception of emptiness. We're not planting dunchi. So there must be a way to get drachis to transform into dunchi. The way that happens is to take our seeds that we plant from hearing about seeing emptiness directly and work with them, work with them, work with them until we have a direct experience of emptiness directly. And then every time we hear about it or think about it, we've got dunchis arising that we can then replant. So Sokchi is not so helpful. But these other three, which aren't like separate chis, they're dunchi, drachi are subcategories of rikchi. But working with these ideas, particularly doing the car, full car, a car, the car, my car, with different things and trying to catch where is it that the delineation of the object's identity happens. Do it with trees, do it with your glasses, do it with your cell phone, do it. We started at 6, at 7:18. Let's take a break. Pausing recording. Specialist says, when we get to the top of that first mountain, the mountain of our path of accumulation, our renunciation, you get over it, you go down a little bit, and oh, son of a gun, there's another mountain. The next mountain is this path of preparation mountain. And that mountain is about studying and grasping this thing about Chi Chedok. And he says, this is how it goes. After having studied Chi Chedok, contemplated, meditated, done lots of virtue, one day this might happen. You could be standing at the stove, heating a pot of water for making tea for your incredible Lama. And suddenly, as you're looking at the pot on the stove, you experience the fact that there is no pot on the stove. You experience your eye gaining information, long, black, curved, shiny. And you realize that you cannot see a whole pot. you experience your mind taking that information, those clues, and gluing that data together into an idealized whole thing called pot. We realize that all we ever interact with is this whole idealization that we've mistaken for a pot on the stove. Real, complete, in it, from it. All the mistake. We experience how we only get a few clues at a time. But our mind puts the whole thing together into a nice whole object. Front, back, sides, bottom, inside, outside. As you hear an explanation of this, we get an intellectual understanding. We can imagine. We can recognize that, oh yeah, it's true. We never see all the parts of an object at the same time. And yet we know that a pot that holds water has a bottom, even when we can't see it. Intellectually, we can grasp it. Intellectually, we can imagine it. But there will come a day where we will experience that directly. That's experiencing chichara directly. Experiencing the fact that the ideal, the chi, and the cherak, the manifestation, the apparent manifestation of that ideal, is what's forcing me to have the experience I'm having. This experience is called chuchok. Chuchok means the supreme dharma. It means the highest, the most correct experience that we can have within our deceptive reality is this experience of aware of our mind getting information and putting on the idealization through which we mistake the object as having its own nature. Chuchok, it's called. It's the final stage of our path number 2, path of preparation. It's the last few moments of being so kewo, ordinary being. Is this experience, not in meditation, in life, of, oh my gosh, I'm experiencing the data, receiving the label. It's called the highest because the next thing that will happen, if you give it the opportunity, is your direct perception of the fact that nothing exists in any other way than that. The direct perception of emptiness. The power of this direct experience of the seeds ripening into the identity of the object, subject, and interaction between all 3 spheres pushes us into the direct perception of and nothing has ever existed in any other way than that. Nothing can exist in any other way than that. And one reaches Papa. And technically, as soon as you are in the direct perception of emptiness, you are Pakpa. So Chuchok comes from the goodness that we gather by growing our renunciation. Getting over that mountain of renunciation, we climb the second mountain of our path of preparation, our class time, our study, all that background information, so that we have the goodness to hear a class like this one, explaining exactly what happens, that through which our mind recognizes our self, our other, and our interaction between. Generals and things characteristic of those generals. We're seeing our mind make itself and its world out of the ripening of its own karma. And once over that mountain peak, we go into the direct perception of emptiness. Geshe-la calls it the Valley of the Golden Land. Very poetic. In the direct perception of dependent origination, which is this Chuchok, we see clearly what's happening with these mental images. If that's what we're experiencing, is our mental images ripening, forcing us to see the object in the way that we do. What we realize is that we have finally experienced deceptive reality in its deception. This is not the first time we've experienced deceptive reality, because we have always been experiencing deceptive reality. We just never knew it before. With this experience, we don't only know it, now we've experienced it. We used to think all those things had some part of their identity in them from them. We didn't even recognize it as deceptive. Then we heard about it as deceptive. All right, makes sense. But once you see your mind seed laying on the overlay, direct experience, not high, not intoxicated, not trick of the eye, right? Full on real experience. We now know deceptive reality for what it really is. Often called relative truth or relative reality. It doesn't give the right connotation. Relative just means you can't know tall without short. That is true, but that's not helpful in stopping our selfish reaction to tall people or short people. Perceiving our seeds ripening into the identity is directly helpful for stopping us from blaming anybody for anything. It shows us directly that, in fact, that it's my own mind creating it and its experiences, its reality. Our training will have told us that the imprints that make that mind do that are the imprints that we make as we perceive ourselves, think, do, say things towards others. So that this output that we have is experiences of me, other them doing that to me. Deceptive reality becomes clear. So Geshe-la says, you take the tea and you serve your precious Lama, and then you go to do your meditation. Because of hours of practice, hours of study, hours of merit, you're able to put your mind into that very deep state of meditation that's in which your awareness of sensory input is shut down. Even the awareness of thought sensory input is shut down. They call it your mind being in the form realm, but it's a misnomer. Our mind is in the causal form realm, meaning we're at such a deep concentration that the seeds that we're planting during that time, if one of those were to ripen at your time of death, it would push us to the first level of form realm as our next rebirth. It takes a very deep state of concentration, inner concentration, to reach that state. How do we make the seeds to be able to go into that deep state of meditation? I'll answer that question. It's a longer story than I want to get into. On some level, it does take training. It takes meditation time, learning to sit on the cushion, training your physical body to sit still, training your mind to sit still. And when it doesn't, training some other part of your mind to catch it and bring it back. And training another part of our mind that when we're on the object, to be keenly aware of whether we're on it with clarity, intensity, and focus. So learning to meditate gives us the cushion time that plants the seeds that add to other goodness that we've done, that will all culminate in this ability to sit into a deep enough meditation that the power of our Chuchok experience will push us more deeply into meditation such that we can sustain the direct perception of emptiness for 20 minutes. So it's a little bit like training. As an athlete, a competitive athlete, they say, train monthly 10% of what you want to compete. Only 10%. So Shayla is a long distance runner. She doesn't have to run 25 miles every day to be able to run a 25-mile race. She trains probably at 5 or 8 miles a day. And then when race comes along, she can put out enough effort to do the 25 miles at her best. But she wouldn't be able to do 50 because she would have to train more than for 25. It's similar to meditation. If we have the capacity to sit our body still and hold our mind in focused attention, lose it, bring it back, lose it, bring it back, lose it, bring it back, with enough clarity and intensity for 1 hour. When these seeds ripen that we need the shamatha meditation time to get to the direct perception of emptiness, there's a big likelihood that we'll be able to do it. Geshe-la says, if you don't want to see emptiness directly, make reasons for not growing your meditation practice up to an hour or a little bit more a day. Do we have to be at shamatha level for the whole hour? No. We need to know the process, learn the process. Plant seeds. Seeds grow. When we need the seeds, they'll be there. As long as we have this diligent daily effort. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's such a relief. Now we can't be sloppy meditators either. Okay. So if you're not meditating daily yet, please, 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 please start. 5 minutes a day. And if you used to be up to half an hour a day and now life won't let you do any, do 5 minutes. Right? Just sit on the toilet if you have to. 5 extra minutes to get some time to yourself, to focus inward. Seriously, in order to have the seeds that we need when the time comes. Geshe often says that when we're taking these classes and we hear things for the first time, most of us like, wow, cool, I'm going to really try. We get enthused and motivated. And hopefully we act on that motivation. Then a class comes around again. And this time, even when we're saying, oh, I want to listen really carefully, there's something in us that goes, heard it before. I know this already. And we shut off a little bit. We can't help it, apparently. And then we hear something and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. But we don't have the same, whoa, reaction to it. And so when we hear it the second time, we're even less likely to act, right? To change something about our behavior than we were the first time. So he says, when you hear a teaching for the first time, if you get some little aha, make a big note and say, I'm going to make myself do something different because of this aha, because you're not likely to get that aha the next time around. So he says, we've got these 3 prerequisites so far then. Leaving the worldly life, mentally, our attachment to things, our belief that worldly life can bring us any lasting pleasure. Second, we must explore this concept chicheda, making mental pictures and then misperceiving them as the real thing, as the self-existent thing. The mental pictures are real things. Pots on stoves boil water. Self-existent pots on stoves don't boil water. They don't hold water. They are impossible. There's no such thing. Third, we need to be meditating regularly. If we really understood that by having the direct perception of emptiness for 20 minutes is all it takes to reach your total enlightenment within 7 lifetimes, would we do anything other than train in meditation? Right? Everything that we did would be directed towards, how do I clear those seeds? How do I make new seeds? How do I get back on my meditation cushion? So next, from Chuchok, we go into our direct perception of emptiness. It's called Chula Chushakpa. Chula Chushakpa, this chua isn't Dharma, this chua is water. Like pouring water into water. While we are in our direct perception of emptiness, Nothing can be said about that experience. And so what they say about it is, oh, it's like water poured into water, right? You can't differentiate the one water from the other water. That's the closest I can describe of what that experience was like. This two things mixing such that they are indistinguishable. Mm. When you are in your Tonglam experience, you can't think, oh, I'm seeing it. Because to be a me having a thought is not ultimate reality. Indirect perception of emptiness, all that is happening is emptiness awareness. There's no me aware of that. There's no that to be aware of. There's not really even the awareness of the awareness. Ultimate reality is the sheer absence of self-nature of any aspect of any experience. Our me, meditating me, is a positive thing. It's a presence. We cannot be aware of a presence and an absence simultaneously until we are omniscient. So while we are in that direct perception of emptiness, there's no experience but pure emptiness, described as like water poured into water. Subject, object, poured together such that there can be no distinction between them. The appearance of two things disappeared. Does that mean you merge into oneness? No, because oneness would be a appearing thing. Do you have an experience of, oh, I'm experiencing not being separate? No, because that would be a thought, that would be a presence. There's only absence of self-nature of oneself and all existing things. And this has come to be termed non-duality. And they use two words for non-duality. One is ni nong mepa, the other is nyam ni. Non-duality sounds in English like, oh, we merge into one. It does not mean that. It also does not mean, oh, I've just melted into emptiness. It doesn't mean that either. Our I that we would be thinking of is an appearing thing. It's a presence. We can't become emptiness. We can't melt into emptiness. We can't melt into our essence because the we we're talking about is not an absence. And yet the we that we're talking about necessarily is absent of self-existence. So to reach experiencing that directly, there's nothing more you can say about what it is or what it's like. But now we know non-duality. We know what's meant in the scripture by non-duality. The ni nang mepa means in that period of time, your awareness of subject and object have ceased. They don't go away, because once out into your deceptive reality, there they are again. But once we are out of deceptive reality, they can't be experienced. So it doesn't mean subject, object disappears. Our focus is in a different reality, a pure ultimate reality. Then the other meaning of non-duality is nyamni. Nyamni means totally equal. Every object, every existing object has its own emptiness, meaning its own lack of its nature in it, from it. And every object's lack of self-nature is 100% lacking self-nature. And that means every object's lack of self-nature is identical to every other object's lack of self-nature. Not one big emptiness that everything comes out of, but every appearing thing must be 100% lacking its own nature in order to appear in the way that it does to the being to whom it appears. Identical. The emptiness of the gnat, the emptiness of you, the emptiness of Buddha, all equal. Equally 100% no nature in them from them. Non-duality. It does not mean, here's your answer to the question 5C. It does not mean you merge with oneness. It does not mean you lose your awareness of the distinction between subject and object. It does not mean that subject and object are really the same thing. And it does not mean there are no objects separate from each other. It does mean you and all objects are equal in the sense that you both are equally lacking your identity and qualities in you from you. All existence is empty in that way. And so all existence exists by way of projections forced by karma. And they are real. So this water poured into water experience goes on for a while. While you're in it, you don't know, do you? You don't have the thought, oh my gosh, it's been 10 minutes. Because that would not be in ultimate reality. When you come out, you recognize, oh, that was about 10 minutes. That was about 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing more that can be said about that experience. And yet you are now Pakpa. You are now on the conveyor belt to the end of suffering, and you will never be the same again. As you come out, there are things that you realize while you're still on your meditation cushion. And then there are things that you will realize in life within the next period of time before you go to bed. This period of time is called Jetop Yeshe. It's called the aftermath wisdom. Yeshe is wisdom. Jetop is after, what comes after. And it's a series of these incredible realizations that come to us one by one as a result of what just happened. those realizations that come to us come to be called the four Arya truths, Pakpa Denpashi in the Tibetan. Arya truth, because they are the truths that come to you, the brand new Arya, one by one, after the direct perception of emptiness has come to a close. Our seeds will wear out, and we will have this sense of coming down out of that deep meditation. And over the next period of time, these four different realizations come to us. Each one has four aspects to it. So technically there are 16 realizations that we have. We won't talk about all of them here. The first of the truths we know is Dunya Dempa. Dunya means suffering. Dempa means the truth of suffering. One of the things you realize is that you have perceived the reality of your own death, its inevitability. And for the remainder of this day, the power of the goodness makes it such that you can know others' thinking, but in a very specific way. You're like directly aware of the mental afflictions through which they choose their behaviors. And you're so keenly aware that their misunderstanding makes them choose behaviors that they think will bring them a good result, when in fact they won't. And it's like a direct understanding of how ignorance pushes us into wrong behaviors. And to see it in another, to feel it in another, when you've just seen that it's such a mistake, right, is this recognition of the truth of suffering. Geshe-la's example was, you might want to buy a diamond to make an offering, and in order to get the money, you take your car to sell it, and you take it to this car dealer who you're aware that he sees you as kind of a spaced out, weird, somebody he could take advantage of. So he offers you much less money than the car is worth. You know it, but what he offers you is enough for what you need. So you accept the offer, but you're like perceiving directly how he's happy with himself for having just taken advantage of somebody, believing that he got the advantage and that it was a good thing. And of course, so directly that he just screwed himself, out of big profits in the future. And it twists your heart, right? It's the revealing the truth of suffering. The second one is the truth of the cause of suffering, Kunjung Dempa. Because of the Chuchok experience, and then going into the nothing exists in any other way than that, direct perception of emptiness experience, now we understand that we have never had a correct perception ever before that Chuchok and direct perception. Every perception ever has been mistaken, valid, but incorrect. We realize that we've misperceived reality since forever, and that this ignorance is the cause of all suffering. You also see that you have never done anything that wasn't in some way for your own benefit. Every thought, every word, every deed, when it's stained with ignorance, is also stained with how is this gonna benefit me? All goodness has been mixed up with selfishness. And it makes you really sad because you see, like that's the source of suffering. The third, like these are not 1, 2, 3, but the third truth that becomes apparent is Gokden. Gokden means the truth of cessation. You realize that in that direct experience of ultimate reality, coming out of it, you now understand that it is possible to end this suffering. Part of your experience is that you've seen a Buddha directly. You communed with the essence of Buddhas, the Dharmakaya, the emptiness of a Buddha. And you also know that you've met your own future Buddhahood. You know how many lifetimes it will take for it to become your reality. You know you won't be called by your same name. Seems peculiar, but he always puts that in. And if we went into our experience with the mind imbued with bodhicitta, one of the aftermath experiences will be this liquid light pouring out of your heart, showing you the faces of every existing being, whom will be the ones that you personally will bring to their total enlightenment someday, right? Your heart like explodes with love. And in about 10 minutes, you see the face of every existing being and love them, right? Tell them you love them. I'll be there soon. Geshe-la described. And so you know you'll dedicate every moment of every lifetime since forever to helping those beings stop their suffering. Because you know where it really comes from. You'll understand about prostrations and you'll make one, like the first real prostration ever, because it's like throwing yourself before Moses in the burning bush, right? You know who's out there and you just, with great humility, hit your face to the floor when you come out of your meditation practice. You understand offerings for the first time. And you finally make an offering that's completely free of self-servingness. You understand the images of the Buddhas are replications of images drawn or painted by someone who saw that being directly, not conceptualizations, but like photographs of your favorite Uncle Frank. You understand the truth of the Dharma, that everything written in all of the books is all accurate and true. And you understand them. You understand what it will take to gain your total enlightenment. And you have this understanding that you're not crazy, that all of that direct experience was valid and correct. And so nobody can tell you differently. You lose all doubt in your path. The fourth realization is Lamden, the truth of the path, right? Part of these oh, I've seen a Buddha, I've seen my Buddhahood, I know what I need to do, the truth of the path. But then seeing, knowing the truth of what's in the text also shows us the truth of the path. They did it, they wrote about it. I see now that those writings are true. I see what I will use to help everybody use it to get there. By seeing truth, ultimate reality, you know what you have to do to burn off all your previously made seeds stained with ignorance and plant seeds made without ignorance. And you're on your fourth path, your path of habituation, and you are living within what's called the, oh, where did it go? The Guma Tabu. Guma Tabu means the illusion. It is. Coming out of your Jtop Yeshe, you now know the illusion. You're not seeing it directly anymore. You're not still seeing your mind seeds making the pot on stove. But you know that the pot on the stove that you see as in it, from it, is not the pot on the stove that's there. You know the illusion. You see things as in the same old way, but you know that they aren't really existing in that way. Right? You see water and you know it's mirage. You see pot on stove and know it's your seeds ripening. It takes a long time before you again perceive your seeds ripening into the object, before you see emptiness directly again. And our task is to choose our reactions, our interactions with others, now based on what we know is true, even though we can't see it that way. But we understand that we can't see it that way, and it doesn't cause any doubt, because we've lost that mental affliction of doubt. So to be aware of the illusion, to be in the illusion, does not mean that things don't exist or nothing matters. It especially does not mean that morality doesn't exist or doesn't matter. The illusion simply means we're seeing things as self-existent, and we know that they are not like that. We know we are incorrect in our perception of them. There are only two, he always says two or three, because later we'll have the third one, two mental afflictions that we lose as a result of our Chu, Chok, and Tonglang. Only two out of 84,000. But one of them is that we lose the intellectual belief in things having their own nature. So that means we know we're perceiving things wrongly. We know that our perceptions are defective. We know that we choose our behaviors not on the way things appear to be, but on the way we want to create them to be. Secondly, we lose all doubt on the path. Tetsum, it's called. Once you've experienced a Buddha directly, once you've experienced your own future Buddhahood, once you've experienced the truth within all the books of Buddhism, what's there to worry about? what's there to argue with anybody about? You know what you have to do. And once you know, you also know that your future lives will be in the right group, right? You'll be in the hands of beings who help you. You will be on your path. Life will still have struggle, but your state of mind will be fine. Burn them off, plant new. So once you know, like, who really cares anymore about the unpleasantnesses? We just do what we have to do to stop perpetuating suffering for everybody. And we're on our fourth path, Gomlam, path of habituation. It starts the day after your direct perception of emptiness, and it lasts until the day of your Buddhahood. 7 lifetimes, maybe not so many. What our task then is to transform those 83,998 other mental afflictions that we still have by way of changing our behavior. Getting off react mode, shifting to respond mode. Learning to overcome, seeing things as self-existent, to the point of destroying even that innate tendency to do so. And sooner or later, we reach the point where those seeds to see things as their identities in them are all burned off or damaged such that they cannot ripen. And we reach that level where we are experiencing the seeds ripening. And our task after that is to clear away the obstacles to our omniscience. And so that's what the path of Buddhism is about. Gomlam is where we are using the wisdom from our path of seeing to perfect the perfection. Practice the perfections as perfectionizers. The process is renunciation first. Grow the urge to stop this worldly life. Train our mind in meditation. Learn about how our minds make those mental pictures of things and mistake them for real objects. Then reach the direct perception of dependent origination, the Chuchok, followed by the direct perception of emptiness. And once we get a glimpse of this path, there's really nothing else that is worth our time. Nothing else is worth our life. But it doesn't mean you give up your life to do these things. We use our worldly life to move ourselves along this path by changing our state of mind through which we interact with those others in what we're calling our worldly life. There's no better Dharma laboratory than your family and your job. Don't need to quit them. All right. You can do your homework for class 6. Remember that person we wanted to be able to help at the beginning of class. We've planted seeds through which we will go on to help them reach the end of their suffering forever. Really, truly. And that's an extraordinary goodness. So please feel this sense of accomplishment, this sense of goodness, the power of what you've just listened to, the seeds you've planted, and be happy with yourself. It came from your goodness. And think of this goodness like the most exquisite, glowing gemstone. Hold it in your hands. Recall your own precious holy guide. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you, carry you if you need it, and then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it, and they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it. By the power of the goodness that we've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom may. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share it with everyone you love, to share it with every being you've ever seen or heard of. See them all filled with happiness, filled with wisdom, filled with loving kindness, and may it be so. All right. Thank you so much for giving me the extra 17 minutes. It's out of my bank account. I'm down to 0 now. I'll try to do better. What day are we? Sunday. I will see you Thursday evening. Have a great week. Thank you for the opportunity of sharing. Stopping the recording.